The White Lotus theme tune is a masterpiece, specifically Renaissance. But why? Up until recently, Cristobal Tabia de Bia was the composer behind the White Lotus soundtrack, but that's a whole different story. He's also the composer of Utopia and the incredible Baby Girl soundtrack from earlier in this year. Now usually, when this appears on our screen, we smash that skip intro before it's too late. But not White Lotus, am I right? So first of all, let's explore the structure of the theme tune. So it opens with this beautiful harp and operatic vocal enters. And that's all instrumentation there is for the first 15 seconds. Then we get this deep voicing from the piano. And we're building to the next section in the arrangement. Got some cymbal swells. And here we are rising into the next section of the arrangement at 30 seconds. And we got this vocal ostinato melody, sort of chopped up version of the original vocal. We've got these shakers, a samba type rhythm. Some introduction of a kick drum there. And now the vocals are stacked. So we've got multiple layers in thirds. Okay, now we're arriving at the 1 minute mark. So we transition from classical to EDM. .127 beats per minute, locked in with a 4 on the floor groove. Building, and then we lose the kick drum 4 on the floor pattern there as we transition into what would be the first frame of the episode. So actually it's very typical in terms of structure for media because 15, 30 and 60-second cut downs are pretty much industry standard for editors so that they have lots of options when it comes to matching music to a scene. So structurally, nothing too exciting actually, really quite normal. Let's dive into theory. So the theme tune's in the key of D flat major and the chords are B flat minor, F sharp, D flat, F minor and G sharp. That's it. It just cycles around that progression for the entire 1 minute and 43. On top of that harmony, we have this triplet arpeggio, and this is just using chord tones. So all diatonic, all notes within the scale, and again, harmonically, melodically, and even rhythmically, nothing too exciting, and we've heard it before. The classical operatic vocal melody enters, and again, still chord tones. We have the lower voicing introduced on the grand piano, which sort of builds the energy and also the low end fills out. Then it pulls back and it ramps up and we get that new operatic vocal, but chopped up in sort of like a motif, but it's played on something like this, a sampler. And then we hear it in solo, then we hear it played in thirds, so that's the root voicing of the original vocal, and then we have it a third above that. And then we get another voicing of all three layered together, but it's the same vocal. And that's it. The theory is as basic as a pop song. So I've seen in this interview with Rolling Stone, De Bia talks about drawing inspiration from birdsong for the theme tune. So specifically the hermit thrush. He was talking about how it produces these beautiful arpeggios and melodies. And that's where we hear the iconic vocal melody, which De Bia was inspired by. In the interview with Rolling Stone, he talks about how playing the vocal chops on a keyboard feels a little bit too artificial. So he used one of these, a controller pad, and specifically an Ableton push controller because of this. It's called a ribbon or a mod wheel, and he uses it to perform those pitch glides in the vocal that make it feel really ethereal and sort of unique. So that's what he used to achieve that sound using the vocal from Stephanie Osorio. The other vocal sounds we can hear are a software emulation of a mellotron, which was a tape sampler that the Beatles used, and De Bia uses this to create the sound of a boys choir, but with more of a synthetic feeling texture underneath the main vocal. Other than that, we literally have some strings, 4 on the floor kick, some percussion, and a sub bass with the piano. That's it. So the structure is very simple. The harmony, melody, rhythm are all very conventional, and the production isn't nothing out of the ordinary. So why is this piece of music so special? Well, this is what I believe makes it such a masterpiece. And De Beer is very good at this across all of his scores. It's the juxtaposition of sounds, samples, and interweaving of different genres. Unlike typical TV themes, which often aim to be catchy and uplifting, the White Lotus theme is quite disoriented, on edge, and it makes you feel quite anxious almost at times. Put it this way, how many times have you heard an operatic piece evolve into an EDM banger? Probably never. But this is undoubtedly what makes it so captivating. We've never really heard music like this before, and when it first appeared on our screens, it's incredibly refreshing in a saturated world where there's 120,000 songs a day released just on streaming services to hear something so different. And also, in the same way that a horror film uses dissonance to create tension and suspense, the White Lotus does the same thing, but with unconventional textures and juxtaposing instrumentation, which perfectly reflects the on-screen tensions. Throughout all seasons, we see the characters upholding a facade, all whilst chaos brews. The theme tune heightens these emotions before we even see the first frame of the episode. And that's what makes Renaissance such a masterpiece.